Potato. So we're starting the series on Muktze. It's unit 37 of our Moreno unit. Muktze is a very interesting thing, that in the sense that we all have, like, I don't know you well enough, but the rest of us definitely have children who've asked us about Shabbat in the past, and the kids ask, right, is coloring Muktze on Shabbos, right? Right, what's the answer? Right, it's not Muktze, it's the crayon is Muktze, but the coloring, now, is the crayon Muktze is also not so pashut, as we'll learn. But it's just interesting that this idea of Muktze is something that permeated all of Shabbat. It became the whole essence of Shabbat everywhere is Muktze, right? We have Vot Melacha, we have all those things, but what in the conception of the way children perceive Shabbat.
You said whether it's Shabbat or not, can't do that on the wall.
Now the other interesting thing about Muktze is how, so there are two I'd say classic distortions of the idea of Muktze. Number one is what I said just now, right? Right, cooking is Muktze on Shabbos, right, and coloring is Muktze on Shabbos, right? So Muktze, we're going to discuss how that came to be. The other aspect is how little we generally usually know about Muktze, right? The person comes home from Shul El Shabbat and discovers that he has on his table, he has his phone, a pen, and a potato, raw potato. His phone, a pen. Oh, tefillin. Tefillin is also not a whole sugi in itself, an achinami. But let's take all right, tefillin. No, tefillin is even more difficult one. Tefillin, a pen, and a raw potato on the table. So what do you do? Right.
Remove the tefillin. That's not a problem.
So moving tefillin is not a problem. Okay. What else is not a problem?
Potato? Raw potato?
Oh. Very good. But what? Right. No one eats raw potatoes. That's why I brought that as an example. Correct. Because no one eats raw potatoes. But many people would not, right. Many people would not be aware enough. And the first thing they say is, oh, the potato, put away. That's the first thing. Then I realize the potato is the most problematic one, halachically, right? So just we're going to try to define why is it the most problematic one. Let's go through this. So,
potato weight.
I always make sure I never leave home without a potato weight. Anyway, so the Mishnah Perek Zayin Mishnah Dared tells us, Rabbi Yossi Omer, כל הכלים ניטלים, חוץ מהבשר הגדול והיתד של מחרשה. First page. Wait, you have unit 37 there? Yeah, okay. כל הכלים ניטלים, חוץ מהבשר הגדול והיתד של מחרשה. כל הכלים ניטלים לצורך ושלא לצורך. רבי נחמיה אומר, ניטלים אלא לצורך. טוב, bit of a not very clear מחלוקת. What do you mean by you can carry כלים לצורך ושלא לצורך? What do we mean? What are the Amoreim discuss how far this machloket goes and also where it began. So let's just see. I'm going to jump right into the Gemara that gives the whole background. What? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Right. You can carry. You're allowed to carry all tools except for the large saw and the heavy part of the plow. Thank you. Yes. Of the plow. And then there's a machloket. Are you allowed to carry letzorach v'shelo letzorach? Right? If you need them or don't need them, and it's not so clear what that means. We're going to try to understand that better.
The items, you need the place, you need the
right. Exactly. All those things. Like what is the purpose of carrying anything? Especially tools specifically. So let's start from the Gemara. Right, originally, that only 3 utensils are allowed to be carried on Shabbat. So these 3 seem to be some kind of more professional tools, right? special knives that are used only in the context of breaking up dvilot. Zamar Dra was something they used to get rid of all the excess fats and parts that are more the yoyich, as they say, from the challenge, from the pots. Why? Yes. They put it aside for you. Now only these, meaning they're out of the professional tools. So what are you allowed to carry on Shabbos at that point? Barishona, you're allowed to carry. Okay, so obviously you're allowed to carry books and food.
But that whole thing is you can do
now. So shnia. You have to. So most Rishonim say that a plate and a fork, of course, you're allowed. That at no point were you not allowed to use a bowl on Shabbat because you had to eat. What the discussion here is about things that are professional tools. So these are very, very commonly used as part of the meal, and therefore you're allowed to carry them, but nothing else. So even other utensils you might need to use for the meals, you're not allowed. But forget the shochet's knife. Also not the shochet's knife, also the butcher's knife, and also
knife for Dila.
No, all those things you're not allowed. I'm saying all those things you're not allowed. I'm saying not only the shochet's knife, even the butcher's cleaver, you're not allowed to carry on Shabbat because that's not like a Beishulchan. But so like anything else, right? Anything else you wouldn't be allowed. Hetiru chazov hetiru, which is a bit of a strange sentence in itself. We're going to try to figure what that means. Ad shamu kol hakelim talim b'Shabbat chutz mimasar gadol v'heter shel machresha. And then we went the other way around, right? There was a heter and a heter and a heter until we end up with the opposite, that you're allowed to carry anything except for these specific kilim. I'm not going to go into why these specific kilim this moment. The kilim mentioned in the Mishnah, right? The part of the plow and that kind of saw. We're going to have to see later on why these specifically. But before that, my hetiru chazuv hetiru chazuv hetiru. What are these recurring heterim? Amar Abaye, hetiru devar shemelachto leheter l'tzorech gufo. So you have a tool that's normally used for mutter things, right? Things that would not be a transgression on Shabbat. For themselves, for their own, in order to use them. That's tzorech gufo. Tzorech gufo means to use them as they are to be used. I'm not even sure if normal use. Normal use is already.
They have a use. The item has a use for you.
Use on Shabbat. Right? Well, if it's machlola heter, right? If the utensil is machlola heter, meaning it's normal uses for that. So of course, but even if it's machlola isur, if I have correct. Now let's say it's rarely done. It still doesn't matter. It's still a tzorech gufo. Right. Right now, I want to use it as the hammer. Why would it be muktze for me? I'm not. No. So the answer is that. So here we're not looking at the item. We're looking at the use. In other words, you're not allowed to carry the hammer unless you're cracking nuts with it. And the hammer is itself. Well, you'll crack nuts with it now. Better. So the point isn't. I don't mean that the use will be imminent, but I mean that you're carrying it in order to use it on Shabbat, right? That you're allowed to do, as opposed to it's not that once you're allowed to carry it for the nuts, you're allowed to carry it for anything else too. You're allowed to carry it for anything else. For any other use, you won't be allowed, right? So we're looking at the use that I intend, the intention of the carrying. I'm carrying it in order to, with the intention of using it on nuts, using it right. So let's get to it step by step. You're right. It's a good question. So I want to work it. We're working through this process of the Gemara. At this point, you're not allowed to use the hammer at all. At this point where I'm holding in the Gemara. Okay, yeah. Because Abai says, right. At this point, we're saying everything is, you're not allowed to carry anything except for those three, right? Now, then hetiru, says Abai initially, only things shemelachto leheter, things that are normally used for mutter use. Chazru ve'hetiru, devar shemelachto leheter l'tzorech mekomo. This is a chidush. Meaning we thought, right, if I want to use the butcher's cleaver, right? The butcher, he cuts meat with his cleaver. Right? No, you're allowed to do that on Shabbat. No problem. Right? So that's klish machto leheter. Now I want to use it to slice my meat, right? Am I allowed to do that on Shabbat? So before the heter, I wasn't allowed. Why? Because it was a professional tool. So I wasn't allowed to carry it at all. Then they said, oh, if you want to cut meat with it, fine. And then they said, oh, by the way, we'll also allow you, that's what Gaksu was asking, we're also allowed to put it away afterwards. But you wouldn't be allowed to move it because you don't want the kids to harm it. Well, if they could get hurt, right? You don't want to get stolen. If you're concerned about getting stolen, then you're not allowed to carry it. You're only allowed to carry it because you need the space here. Right, right. Not because you want the knife to not because you want to protect the knife.
That's the Chazur Veitir. Now we need to have that.
Oh, that's the last Chazur Veitir. Chazur Veitir הוא דבר שמלאכתו לאיסור לצורך גופו, לצורך מקומו לא. So you'd be allowed to carry something that, right, the hammer, according to Abaye, you'd be allowed to carry to use, you won't be able to carry to put it away, to get rid of it, right? I need the space here. Even so, you were only allowed to do it with one hand, not to carry it with two hands. So that's Abaye's take. Amar Rava. So right, the last stage was you weren't allowed to carry it with two hands. You were allowed to carry it with one hand. Until they said, you know what, you can carry with two hands. There's a bit of a strange concept, right? Two hands, one hand. Who cares? No, it's a bit weird, right? Yeah. So the question is, what is the shinui? Are two hands always shinui? Right. It depends on how heavy it is. How, right? If you're allowed to carry.
You can use something if you use wood. Well, you can't do other things.
Okay, let. We'll get to. So, right, nachon. We'll get, because again, here the question is he talking about shinui or is he talking about something else? We're going to learn. I'm just pointing this out. It doesn't seem to be a shinui because you can't say categorically always carrying with two hands is always the normal thing. If I have a 1 kilo hammer, it's weird to hold it with two hands, right? If I have a screwdriver, it's weird to hold it with two hands, right? Unless you have tiny hands or a huge screwdriver. So there. But right, that's the point. The point is you can't make a categorical distinction. Which is a bit of an interesting take. That Rava says there's no justification to differentiate between tzor gufo and tzor mekomo, which to me raises the question: really, no justification? Can't think of any svara to differentiate between carrying it for its own use or carrying it so it won't be in the way. All right, interesting. But just pointing that out. Ela amar Rava, hetiru devar shemachto leheter ben tzor gufo ben tzor mekomo. So right away, whatever is machto leheter, you're allowed to carry for either one, right? For its own use, or to move it out of the way. Chazur v'etiru mechamal etzel, also to protect the item itself. Chazur v'etiru davar shemachto leisur, letzor gufo letzor mekomo in mechamal etzel lo. So the next step is to matir not only, right, the davar shemachto leisur, the Abaye says davar shemachto leisur letzor mekomo is asur. So a kli shemachto leisur, what's a kli shemachto leisur? A hammer, right? Any item that's normally used for uses that are also on Shabbos. So, what? Right, exactly. Self-referential, yes. So, according to Abaye, you aren't allowed to carry it tzor mekoma, meaning you can't get it out of the way. Right? You're only allowed to carry it to use. Exactly. Rava does not distinguish in these two, and that's why he says the first stage of heter is things that are melachtan leheter. So tools are normally used for mutter things. So leheter, and then you can carry the tzor gufo mekomo, normally used. Now, exactly what is normal? Tough. That's a big question in general. But specifically here, it's going to be, where we're going to have to discuss what is normal. You say normally used, what do you mean? Very normally used for Isur. What do you mean? So if I have a hammer that once a year I use it on my sukkah, but the rest of the year, every Shabbos, I crack nuts with it, right? So it is normal. So definitely not me. All right. But so just we're going to see it. That's not so pashut either. As usual, nothing's pashut. We thrive on around here. Anyway, so Abai says, so Rava says that the first stage is gufom komo of kli mashtor hetel. After that, it's mechamal etzel of kli mashtor hetel, and then tavash mashtor isur. You're allowed to carry, right? Things are normally used for usher things. You're allowed to carry for gufom komo, but not chamal etzel. And still, we differentiate between one person or two people. Which is also interesting. You're not allowed to carry together with someone else, which is the shinui. It depends on what you're carrying, right? Right? To carry a computer, two people together is weird. To carry a couch with one person is weird, right? So I'm just saying the distinction must be referring to something else and not shinui. When he says adain b'adam echadin, you can carry it on your own, but not with another person. So in the end, we say you can carry them together with someone else too if you really want to. But it is worthwhile to try to understand why have this extra middle stage. Well, what does it give us? All right, I want to skip the ATV and skip to the last line of the Gemara. Amar b'chanina b'mei Nechemia ben Chachalia nishnet mishna zo. Dichtiv b'yamim hema. ראיתי ביהודה דורכים גיטות בשבת ומביאים מערימות. So Rabbi Chanina tells us that this whole story began in Nehemiah's time. So what started in Nehemiah's time? This whole idea, Rishona Yomul Shlosha Kelim Telim B'Shabbat, was Rishona in the beginning. Bereshit. What is Berishona? It seems he's saying Berishona is referring to Nehemiah ben Chachaliah's time. So this is the original Gzirah. The original Gzirah is you're not allowed to carry anything except for Miksot Vila, Zamar Istran, Tikdara, Sikin, Nashagah, Shulchan. Again, minus maybe the most critical, right? If you want to have a look at Ritva and the Ran on the next page, I bring to show that when it comes to Sifrei Kodesh, when it comes to plates, right? If you have a pot that has food in it on Shabbat, you want to eat, says the pot Muktze? Of course not, right? Or a sul b'tiltul, right? Of course not. So it seems that again, in Nehemiah's time, there was a very, very broad isur of carrying anything, basically, and slowly it became not as chamur, not as asur. But let's go to the story in Shabbat Aflamed. Story in Shabbat Aflamed on page 2 about David HaMelech and how he died. So Kol Yom HaShabbat, every Shabbos. So Kol Yom HaShabbat, sorry, there was a Shabbat comes later. Right. David HaMelech would learn Torah all the time. Kol Yom HaShabbat, Havag Vegaris Kol Yoma. David HaMelech, what he did all the time, he spent all day what?
It's not a
The bottom of page 2.
Oh,
Right, sorry. So every Shabbat, what did David HaMelech do all day? Well, the rest of the week he was doing politics, right? He was doing wars, right, whatever. Shabbos, what did he do? Learn Torah all day. What else is he going to do? Although some say he said Tehillim. Anyway. We're doing all day. That day in which he was supposed to die, the Malach HaMavet came to kill him, and he was stuck. Because you can't kill a person while he's learning Torah. So you have a problem. Yes. Oh, I don't remember. He never stopped learning. That's David HaMelech. Well, what can I do? He had a big garden in the backyard. He made a bit of an earthquake there, right? He ruffled the trees. What? Yeah. David HaMelech ran out to the backyard to see what's going on. Like there's an earthquake in the backyard. What's the deal, right? Nafak leMichze, so he went out. Nafak, right? Yetza leMichze, he went out to see what's going on there. Havasarik bedaga, he was going down the stairs. Ifchitaga mitvatei, the stair moved. Ishtik v'nach nafshe, right? For a moment, he was running to see what happened, but he was still learning. He was still saying Tehillim at least, right? He was going to the backyard and he was still, right? And the stair moved, that made him go, right? Whatever, some kind of reaction, made him stop learning. Ishtik, so he was quiet. Nach nafshe, that's the moment he died. Where was he when he died? On the stairs in the backyard. So he falls down the stairs, and the body's stuck there in the garden. It's Shabbos. What do you do? Right. And there's a whole unappetizing part here that the dogs want to come eat him, and the sun is making the body rot, and the dogs want to eat him. And what do I do? Basically, he sent to ask them, what am I supposed to do? You can put a child or a loaf of bread, might be more empathetic towards the children. Put it on him and then carry him as the base of your food. Right now. All right. Whatever the story means, I'm sure it has great depths that we're not going to go into right now. But the most basic question we need to ask is: wasn't Nehemiah the one who invented the whole Muktze thing? Nehemiah lived when? 550 years after David. Yes. What? Maybe I'm saying definitely. Right? Is it 480 years from the time of Shlomo till Churban Bayit? Right. And then another 70 years of Galut. So we're talking about around 550, between 550 and 600, right? Right. So, Kitzer. So you see the problem. Question is, if Nehemiah is the one who invented Muktze, so what was Shlomo's problem? Now, I do have to say that it very well may be that the Gemara is trying to translate, the conundrum they had there into halachic concepts that were only created later. So it could be a bit of a kofar and say that. And say that the struggle wasn't exactly the struggle, not quite the struggle, but the Gemara's way of expressing, of portraying the struggle is through halachot that we have. Right? I think this happens. You all seem a bit, why? Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah, okay. It very well may be that the Gemara is just expressing it through this, portraying such a conundrum, through a halacha that didn't really exist in his time. No, that wasn't the real problem. The Gemara one of the things the Gemara illustrates here is tov right? Because the dogs, it's a pasuk from Mishlei that says that the live dogs are better off. I'm not even sure how to translate that. Better off, I guess. What? Whatever. Than the dead lion. And the Gemara says the lion is David HaMelech. The dogs we're going to eat, right? So who's eating who, right? The lion, right? But the point is the Gemara might be trying to express some kind of concept, and then it tells us a story that doesn't quite fit the historical era, right? So but we'll see that the post can take this very seriously and say, there must be some greater depth here. There must be some, not greater depth, sorry. There must have been some kind of Isur to carry lefachot, dead people on Shabbat. So this idea of Muktze, of not carrying things that are not quite appropriate, Shabbat appropriate, already existed, preceded Nehemiah. So the question of what did Nehemiah do, what did Nehemiah not do? So there's a bit of the historical background about these things.